Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 162 of the Citrix session. I'm back this week. I'm your host this week. I'll be back some. Andy Whiteside. Bill Sutton, who leads the practice at XenTegra, is here. Bill, how's it going?
Doing great, Andy.
You are staying busy. I know. I won't even bother to ask.
Yeah, pretty much. Still trying to get into all these things that are some of them are new, some of them aren't so new.
So Bill basically inherited or took over our biggest practice at XenTegra, what I call modern workspace, which includes all the EUC players like Citrix.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot to look after, and it is in decent shape, but there's been a lot of moving parts historically and recently.
That's for sure.
Speaking of Citrix, Geremy Meyers, who runs the technical specialist, I probably got that name wrong in the latest version of the name, but runs that team here, at least for the East Coast, if not, the East Coast probably. Jeremy, what is the official title, and what do you call your Smurfs these days?
Oh man, our Smurfs are called account technology strategists. So focus more on not just pre-sales, but honestly the whole life cycle and journey of the customer. So as much post-sales as pre-sales now.
And so your title is Papa Account Technology Strategist?
Papa Smurf, you got it.
Yeah. Well, could be worse. Could be worse. And then we have Monica Griesemer with Monica. This is her last podcast with us. Monica let us know that she'd be moving on. We talked about it a little bit before we hit record. Monica, this is your last one, so we hate to see you go. I know the Citrix world has to be hating to see you go, but you had some personal initiatives, and that's got you changing roles. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, Monica Griesemer. I am, for the time being, a product marketing manager at Citrix. It's been great to be on the podcast over the years now, years plural. So I am doing product marketing. I am actually moving to London, England. So I am taking on a new role outside of the EUC space. So I'll let any of the listeners add me on LinkedIn, and then you can figure out what I'm doing after this. But yes, I'm bidding so long, or see you soon to the EUC space. I'm sure people and things have ways of circling back around in life. Still pretty early in my career, so you never know what's going to happen. But it's truly been a joy speaking to the listeners and speaking with you all over the years. So thank you for having me back for one last time for now.
Yeah, I'm sure this is not farewell forever. We'll see you again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It was so you wanted to move to the UK. Was it just a personal desire to always live abroad?
Yes, both personal and professional. I went to the UK when I was 18 and have been back almost 10 times since. I just seem to be continuously going back there. So if any of the listeners are UK based, please hit me up. We can grab tea or a pint or whatever. I'm excited to get acclimated with the city. Immigration's an interesting task, so I feel for anyone and everyone who has gone through that, but makes me more empathetic to the process. But it should be quote unquote a little easier because they are English speaking. So I've always wanted to live in Europe, but kind of an easier foot in the door. So excited to start this new phase of life.
Well, I know we have listeners there because I was at the Citrix Unite event a few months ago, and somebody heard me talking to somebody else and just came up and asked if I was the podcast guy. They didn't know I was. They just knew my voice.
I love it.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's see. So for your last podcast, we have chosen something that I'm kind of passionate about in your space, and that's the idea of browser technologies being the secret to security, as crazy as that sounds. But getting a handle on browser technologies. This blog is called Enhanced Security for Linux Thin Clients with Citrix Enterprise Browser and ZTNA. I'm going to change the title a little bit. Enhanced Security for Linux Thin Clients that are already secure, or AKA ain't Windows, with Citrix Enterprise Browser and ZTNA. Monica, you said the author's name a minute ago, so I'm going to let you say it because I'm never going to get that right.
Yeah, it's Mugundan. He is on our obviously enterprise browser and ZTNA side. I think we're going to talk about SPA a little bit as well.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the world of browsers a little bit going into this. So 1996 or 7, don't remember what year it was. I was given Internet Explorer 6 and told that, hey, this will be the browser of the future forever. And you won't need applications anymore. Everything will run in this browser. Well, that was 1996, 97. By the way, that was the same browser that was on my home computers at that time. And then over time, Chrome, Chromium based, but Chrome specifically Google Chrome, became a standard browser both on my home computer and on my work computers. And then this Edge thing showed up a couple years ago, which is also Chromium based, Edge from Microsoft. I guess my big takeaway of that, whether I'm using a thin client, which I have on my desk beside me, or whether I'm using my personal computer or my work computer, it's all the same browser. That's been madness all along. And now all these bad things come through that browser. It just kind of makes sense that we shouldn't be using a consumer browser in the workplace, doesn't it, Bill?
Yes, I think it does, Andy. I don't, but to your point, I don't think any of us even thought about it, and really probably haven't thought about it. Some listeners may have never thought about it, but really, to your point, the browser, whether you're talking about the old Internet Explorer or Edge or the Edge Chromium version, et cetera, Chrome itself, we're all really designed as consumer applications, consumer oriented. And there's been a lot of bolt-ons to these over the years, leveraging specific group policy objects and things that can lock them down, but they were not necessarily designed from the ground up with security in mind.
So take that same comment, not necessarily designed from day one to be secure, more capable than secure, and then apply that same logic to Windows, and now we got the double whammy of
Right.
Commercial consumer browsers on consumer operating systems, all being used in the corporate world, and us wondering why are we having all these security issues?
Yes, precisely.
Geremy, you want to jump in on that topic?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. What would you say, 1996, 97, IE6? I mean, listen, as recent as maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I had customers still running these apps on IE6, which was that hard to get off of them too. And so front ending, in fact, the conversation I had is they were going to front end, this web app that required IE6 with Citrix, literally just to protect it because it was public facing. Had to run on the infrastructure on the back end. It's pretty bad. But like most things that run the business, sometimes it's hard to get off of these things. And I'll just point to the San Francisco Metro. They still use this 5.25-inch floppies to run their Metro. But I digress.
Yeah.
Legacy technology, it's stuck around for sure.
Well, for our listeners, it's August 24th, 2001. So I was off by a couple of years. It's all kind of blended together because it was 30 years ago. Plus, I had a bunch of kids at that time, around that time too. Monica, your thoughts on the world of thin clients and not being Windows and browsers that were built for the business world where they fit?
Yeah, I see every day thin clients becoming more and more prevalent as we hybrid work, as we remote work. A lot of this conversation came out from the iGel event. So having those, those are the thinnest of clients, the smallest kind of OS devices, being able to give employees, your employees, a thin client instead of a full desktop or a full laptop, and be able to virtualize anything they need is huge.
Yep.
And then when it comes to a browser, if anyone can access a browser from anywhere, but as soon as you need to secure it, as soon as all of your work is getting done inside of a browser, then controlling it is a whole different issue than giving people access to it.
Yep.
You can put a Chromebook in anyone's hands and they can click the icon and go. But what if you need to put security parameters around that? What if you need to put watermarks over it? That's what we're talking about here today with the enterprise browser.
So before we jump into the next section, I'm going to ask you guys to jump in and define a couple acronyms for me. I'm going to ask you for ZTNA, SPA, SASE, MDM, MAM, and then if you guys can think of another one that's relevant in this conversation as we talk about browsers and thin clients, let me know, enterprise browsers and thin clients. But let's start with the one that's going to be first on the list here, and that's ZTNA. Bill, you want to go, and then we'll let Geremy and Monica give their 2 cents on what ZTNA stands for?
Sure. So stands for Zero Trust Network Access. Of course, that's easy because it's right here in the middle of the article. So had you asked me that without access to this, I may not have gotten it. But this solution really is about assuming that everything that comes into your environment is not trusted until they prove otherwise. And it also, I think, generally at a high level anyways, doesn't in most cases involve a VPN, the traditional VPNs that we've seen. And the biggest solution for this is Citrix Secure Private Access, which comes into SPA.
Yeah.
So I'll pass it to Geremy and let him add some color to that.
So Bill, your answer is don't trust anything. Assume everything should not be trusted. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, I was going to say, maybe the next buzzword that goes along with that is least privileged access, meaning,
Yes.
when you think about how VPNs traditionally have worked, once you've connected, you had
Got it
access
all.
to everything. You had access to everything, right? So if your VPN terminated in the data center, it was kind of up to you as an IT administrator to start adding, ACLs, access control lists, into restrict access to what you get access to. This sort of flips that on its head and says, hey, out of the gate, even after you've authenticated, you have access to nothing, right? And so we have to turn on things that you have access to as well, which is completely different. So when I speak with customers, and there are a lot of customers now looking to replace VPN solutions because they're looking for zero trust, least privileged access. That's a big initiative I'm seeing.
Monica, anything about ZTNA in general we didn't cover?
No, I think we covered it there. That's more of the umbrella term that we see. Trust nothing, test everything. And as we drill into it, then you get even more acronyms, like you were saying, Andy, MAM, mobile application management, MDM, mobile device management, locking down the device itself or containerizing essentially an application to lock it down to make it secure. So there's different ways of doing it that we'll get into, but at the crux of it, it's lock everything down until proven otherwise.
Well, let me hit 2 points on ZTNA real quick. ZTNA is old school thought process. It replaces old school thought process where we're just trying to secure things, with file permissions and share permissions and network permissions, and also implementing some type of functionality around data loss prevention simultaneously. And then take all that and then boil it down to, accessing with something that's not Windows, that doesn't have wide open access. Now all of a sudden we're starting to get closer to ZTNA. But Monica, we'll go to you first with that next acronym, which is SPA, Secure Private Access.
Yes. So SPA, sometimes we call it SPA. It was funny. I was at Citrix Connect 2 weeks ago, Chicago, and Praveen was on the ground there with me, who is the leader PM for SPA. And he says, if you want to go to the spa, talk to me. And so it's a bad joke, but SPA, Secure Private Access, allows organizations to secure web and SaaS applications. So to make the, spa day reference, you can sleep a little easier. You can relax a little more knowing that those web and SaaS applications can be secured. Get a watermark. Yes, I am doubling down on the dad joke. I will do that till my dying day. But that's the biggest thing for secure private access. And enterprise browser is a part of that. So a browser built for the enterprise. But I don't want to steal all of our thunder.
Sure.
Well, to be clear though, so ZTNA, that is an industry word. So
Yes.
even though this document talks about ZTNA, SPA, Secure Private Access, that is a Citrix product. So just to draw the line there, if you go walk into a shop and start talking about SPA, there's a very good chance, if you've never had this conversation before, they might not know what you're talking about. Yep.
Thank you for the clarification there, Geremy. Yes, there are these muddled lines sometimes of what's a Citrix term and what's an industry term. So good point of clarity.
And people are so polite. They've let me go 5 minutes before going, what's SPA? Oh, let me take a step back and explain that to you. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Jeremy, you want to hit these bullets that go along with SPA specifically?
Yeah. So when you think about how a lot of enterprises have sort of protected Windows apps in the past, they delivered it with Citrix, right? Now I could install this locally on my endpoint, or I could host this and deliver it to you as a hosted app. Delivered with HDX, but the idea is they wanted to turn on restrictions. They wanted to manage the clipboard, whether you could cut and paste. They wanted to manage what you could download or upload or even print to. This is something that has been difficult to do for a web app, right? Simply because here is an unmanaged browser on an endpoint. To Bill's point, in some cases, we have added group policies to manage that, but at the end of the day, it's got to be a managed device. And even then, the group policies didn't particularly cover what what a customer's trying to do with some of these security restrictions. So essentially what we're doing is we're adding a lot of those same HDX policies, clipboard restriction, download, upload restriction, printing from an HDX session to a managed browser. So now maybe you're going to like a Salesforce and maybe it runs better because Lightning's a beast. You don't want to run that in your data center. So you're running that locally through a managed browser. How do you contain that data? How do you manage DLP, data loss prevention. There's another one, right? Well, you can do that with the policies that you can apply to the enterprise browser, and that's what we're talking about here.
So, Geremy, you made a comment that you couldn't really do that. The only way we used to do it with the browser, and really the only way to do it was to get them into a virtual app or desktop that was hosted
Correct.
and then control
Yep.
that browser session, which really seemed unnatural to have to take that extra step. But we did it, and people still do it. Like tons of people still do it. And then this ability to do it, native browser look and feel, or native browser really is what's happened most recently. Bill, let me ask you this. If you take all this idea around ZTNA and you go back to the very first time you saw somebody remotely access an environment through a dial-up connection with a username and password and access it through Citrix and Citrix only with the clipboard turned off, printing turned off, all those additional policies put in place, was that effectively ZTNA?
You could argue that absolutely, I think. Yes.
We've had ZTNA since the very first time I ever touched Citrix.
Just the way we went about it was markedly different, but well, somewhat different. I mean, but the end result was the same or similar.
Meanwhile, in parallel, we were giving those same users a VPN connection and saying, here, have total access to the network.
Yeah, but
Yes, we
sometimes you
did.
had dial-up VPNs.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what's different, Andy, though, is I think there was an assumption because that was in a lot of cases, that was a corporate managed device. They could manage some of the agents and pieces that ran on that endpoint. Maybe that was good enough. I would argue probably not, because
you mean they could manage it that one sales kickoff a year where they brought everybody in and updated everybody's laptops? That was managed?
No, 100%. But I think there was a warm blankie that went along with the feeling of this was a managed endpoint. Maybe I didn't need these sorts of things. And,
Right.
I think, at the end of the day, companies were still impacted anyways. But I think BYOD, just bringing your own personal device into the workplace and using it, and companies allowing that, it just exacerbated the issue tremendously.
Also known as the antivirus that was updated once a year at the company kickoff event.
Ever, yeah.
There's a lot of companies who made a lot of money just cleaning up antivirus. I'll just say that.
And we wonder how we got into all this.
And Andy, before you scroll too far, I did want to circle back really fast on what you said about how it used to just be within Citrix, it used to just be publishing a virtual desktop or publishing a virtual app version of the web browser. Mm-hmm. So I think when I joined in the 2018 timeframe, and I think still up to the last couple of years, the number one virtual app that was deployed on Citrix was a browser, right? So it was just deployed as kind of the four corners of an app. You get a browser. It would pop up in different windows. It wasn't as unified as an experience. So you had that option that was a published app that was a browser. We also offered for a long time this secure browser, which would give you the browser inside of a Linux desktop, and it would clear all the cache and all the cookies after you exit out of it. Yeah. What makes enterprise browser stand out is that it's not only built into the Workspace app, but to double down on what you said, since it's Chromium based, you can do the tabs that you've come to know as a native web browser. Bookmark things as long as the policies are allowed within your environments. Right. You can function just as if you are in a native browser, but with the peace of mind from the admins that they can secure it more indefinitely. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there. The experience for the admins is great. That's what we've been talking about in the policies, but the end user experience is bang on. It's so good. I'll just open it in lieu of a full desktop because that's almost all I need to get into our Jira system, to get into anything that I need internally to Citrix. I'll open an enterprise browser. It's really slick.
I'm going to disagree with you slightly. I think the number one app that we've historically done through Citrix is actually Windows, which in this case we're replacing with Linux. The number two is a browser. And so you combine both of those two big uglies and all the resources it takes to run those big uglies. Next thing you know, you've got a more efficient solution, not only from a user's perspective, but also from a consumption on the back end.
Yep.
And along the way, in that world of presenting Windows workloads and browsers through an ICA protocol, HDX protocol, we've had lots of magical, beautiful things that kicked in around protecting the app at the application level. And all that stuff is now available in these enterprise browsers as well. Monica, you want to jump on that one too?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not familiar, at Citrix, we have a capability called app protection, or you may have heard of it as app protection policies. So this capability restricts key logging and restricts screen capturing. So we used to, when we introduced it, it was inside of virtual desktops. So if you have any key loggers, all of the key logging comes back to the bad actor as a jumbled mess of letters and symbols. And then the screen capturing, you might ask, okay, Monica, what's preventing someone from taking a screenshot of their virtual sessions, which is a great question. And this, when they do take a screenshot, comes back as just a gray box. And then you might also follow up and ask while we're here, okay, what's preventing them from taking their phones out and taking a picture? That is a little bit harder, but then you can also add the thing like a watermark. So if it says Jane Doe, IP address XYZ, and it gets sent around somehow, they'll know exactly where it came from. But back to app protection, that's adding restricted key logging and screen capturing on the enterprise browser.
Geremy, any further thoughts on that?
No, it's perfect. Yeah. I mean, especially with the advent of, personal devices, you have no idea what could be on that endpoint.
Yeah.
The same laptop that I use for work, I'll be honest, occasionally my kids will hop on and do something and I have no idea what that is.
Yeah. So I, was in the Citrix chair 10 years ago now, and the things we couldn't restrict was screen capturing and key logging. Those were the outside the boundaries of what we could do. And well, that showed up, 5-6 years ago, and now there's pretty much nothing we can't do other than taking a picture of the screen. But at the same time, we have a watermark in place if we're worried about that. Yeah, I always use the Edward Snowden, the WikiLeaks thing where he downloaded 10,000 documents. That would have been a lot of screenshots with a lot of watermarks if you had to do it this way.
Right. Absolutely.
Bill, this isn't the only player in the space. I think what they announced at the Agile Disrupt conference was a little unique because what they announced there was that they're going to not only make this part of the Citrix workflows, they're going to make this part of a native browser experience where it literally becomes an icon on your screen where you start your browsing experience from there to get to those things.
Interesting.
So I know you didn't get a chance to attend that, but that's the future of this, where it mimics some of the other players in the space, where it's not just part of the workflow. It is truly a native browser, a browser that's on your computer that looks and feels native, but is managed like it's owned by the company, no matter whether it's a BYOD or a company device.
Wow. Okay, that's a new take on things. That I find that really interesting and certainly more mainstream.
I think it's been a powerful tool, which has been kind of hidden behind the workflows. And now it's going to be surfaced to the front.
Good.
Yeah, I love the fact that now we've got a Linux version. In fact, that's one of the things I've been looking forward to for a long time is, listen, we got a lot of folks migrating to thin clients. iGel, by far, one of the best on the market. And, how do we embed this managed browser in, on that platform? I think this makes a lot of sense. So I'm pretty fired up about it.
So, Monica, bring us home here. Thoughts on an enterprise browser being a mainstream product at Citrix, treated like it's, maybe it's going to be bundled, I'm sure, under the CPL, the platform license and the universal license. But the fact that it can truly be your go-to-market with Citrix, how does that change the game for a Citrix customer?
Absolutely. I think you're definitely on the right track. It is a part of the platform license today. I think it really shows this how far we're doubling down on security at Citrix. We always have been. I liked how you made the call back. It's like what we've been doing has always been ZTNA, but just bringing it to the forefront and saying, hey, we can do this today. And I've been with the enterprise browser over the years as it's getting baked, and honestly, it's more ready than ever to get its spotlight. So I'm excited to have this native application on Linux, on Windows, that when people think of Citrix, they might think of launching the user interface, launching their desktops, launching their published apps. But there might be a whole new fleet of users that come into the space that think of Citrix as just launching a lockdown browser for them. And that's a really exciting prospect for me.
Yeah, I'm literally doing it on the screen while you guys are talking.
You are.
And I'm not authenticated to the Workspace app. I haven't used it this morning on this computer, this Windows computer. I've used it over here on a Linux computer. So it's not letting me, I can't go anywhere until I tell it and prove who I am. However, if I go launch Edge right here, I can go anywhere I want to go. Nobody's stopping me from anything. Maybe the firewall guy, maybe.
Maybe.
And these days, he kind of lets everything fly too. Hopefully he's inspecting it on the way in, I believe. Bill, what did we not cover here that's important?
I think we covered everything solid. The one thing I wanted to mention was that, earlier, relative to the keylogger, Geremy mentioned, we talked about the fact that what we've been doing in the past when we published a browser really kind of shielded us from the risks on the endpoint. When it comes to keyloggers, that's not really the truth, right? I mean, what Geremy said is the truth. Back in the day, if we had keylogger on that device and we were launching a published app, there was a chance that when we entered our credentials, those could be captured by what back then may have been known as a keylogger. By the security features they put into the enterprise browser, we can restrict that now. So, that endpoint still matters to some degree, but it's not as poorly secured with the enterprise browser on it as it ototherwise would be.
Well, that does give us a chance to bring up things like multi-factor, which should be included in these authentication mechanisms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was about to say, surely nobody's out there without multi-factor in place, but we see customers all the time that are still missing it for elements of their business.
Yes, we do see it periodically, and we have a lot of projects where we're specifically asked to implement that on top of traditional Windows AD authentication. Surprisingly, but yeah, that's pretty much just table stakes now.
Should be.
Yeah.
Geremy, any parting words?
I think the one thing that you hit on, maybe you didn't mean to hit on it, but you talked about, how do you get this? It's with the platform license. But I think what's important is, we've simplified the product mix here in the sense that, we are kind of out of the business of selling a DAS solution or an SPA solution or a NetScaler solution, because it forced folks into thinking in terms of what is it I'm trying to deliver? Oh, I'm delivering a Windows app, I'm going to go to this path. If I'm delivering a web app, I'm doing it this path. Maybe I pair that with the NetScaler path, but the idea was it kind of forced you to think of different application types. Maybe that's not a bad thing, but the idea going forward is, listen, Citrix is just a platform. Regardless of the type of application you need to deliver, you just have the platform, and then the platform gives you the opportunity to deliver it however you need to. So if you need to, publish it as a published Chrome browser to get this app out, sure, maybe that's the use case. And there's still a lot of use case for that. One thing we didn't hit on is, man, a lot of these apps function like client server apps with the plugins and things like that. However, if you want to deliver a SaaS app from a managed browser, heck, that's probably 80% of my workflow now at Citrix. And that is a Citrix employee, is me accessing internal websites that aren't publicly available as a, without a VPN.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, are you hosting these apps internally? Is it a SaaS app that you need to, host internally? Again, there's another piece of that platform with NetScaler. So again, we used to joke that when someone said, hey, we're hosting that on Citrix, well, was that a NetScaler Citrix or a, XenApp Citrix or a something else? Now it really is just Citrix. So shameless plug for a platform where the idea is you deliver however you need to deliver.
Well, and I think that's the biggest missing piece. I still meet with people all the time that cannot get their head away from Citrix just being published apps. And it's almost like the success of the company doing that and creating that space has caused them. Now they're looking for alternatives for SaaS apps. Like, what do you mean? You could do it right here. You've been able to do it for a long time right here. You're going back to my first days at Citrix. It was clear that 50% of the apps that I accessed was just a browser and connected to an internal resource.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have had a different looking icon, but it was really just a browser. Yeah. Monica, good luck to you. And
Thank you.
hope to see
Yes,
you
for
around.
sure.
Feel free to ping us. Maybe there's a chance to bring you on in
Yeah.
your new role at some point.
No, absolutely. I'm thrilled to have been able to join you all. And I love going out on this one because I think it's not a look at not only what Citrix has been, but also what Citrix will be. The future of these browsers, the future of what the platform can look like for you. So there's exciting things ahead. I'm just really grateful to be a small part of it. And I'm sure I'll see you all sometime in the very near future. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining
Yeah,
us.
thanks, Monica.
Guys, we'll do it again next week. Thanks.
All right. See you guys.